All right, rock and roll. Are we live? I assume we're live. It says live up there. I don't think I've ever done an Ask Me Anything before. So if somehow everyone could let me know if they can hear me, maybe like Rob could text me or somebody can text me that I'm able to be heard. It said hit the mic, and I did that. So I assume I can be heard. I'm hoping I can be heard. Um, Everyone can see and hear. You're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you. We are live. Okay, good. God, this is nerve-wracking. I'm like, am I doing it right? What's happening? All right, so I guess we await some questions. I hope some questions come through. Can hear you. Okay, thank you, Ken. Yeah, do I sit here and just wait for questions? How in the heck do you play Comatose? That is wild. I know what you mean. Okay, so the galloping drum thing, kick drum things is just something that, it was a neat exercise that I did as a young drummer. And I think there's kind of no substitution for the years and years and years of doing it. I could do it just like in my sleep. It's so funny, that big fill at the end that everybody's like, I gotta see that fill. That is like the same fill that's in the crowing from like so many years prior, just a little different feel, but the same basic principle. Top of the kit, kick drum, top of the kit, kick drum, top of the kit, kick drum, round the kit, top of the kit, kick drum. So, but yeah, it came out really super wicked. And when we demoed that, I remember saying to the engineer that I do all my demo drums with, we actually kept the demo drums. We didn't try to re-record it. We were in LA doing the drums, and I was like, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I ain't ever playing that better than this. It had a real magic to it. Sometimes when you record, it's as much about kind of the energy and the vibe to it. It's not always about like this kind of computer perfect performance. There's like an energy and a vibe, and it was such a, for lack of a better term, it's such a Josh Eppard performance that we kept the demo version. We didn't even try. We never even tried to beat it. Everybody was like, all right, this is the shit. And those were recorded with a guy we've worked with for years, Sean Paul Pillsworth, out of Leaning Tree Studio. Sean Paul's, and he also works at a studio called Nada Studios. And Sean Paul's the man. But yeah, it's a kind of slick. I think the difference is that you can really hear the drums on Vaxis too. So I think it's not that different from a song like True Ugly has those kick drums, and you can hear them in there. They're going, again, little bit different feel, but not that far off the path. So it's funny that I got so much love for the song Comatose when it's all kind of, not that it's like, oh, I've been down that road a million times, but I mean, it's not that far of a stretch for me, but I love that performance. I love that mix. And yeah, it's a song I'm really exceptionally proud of. Favorite song to play live. Hey, Dev, how are you, man? It changes every tour. It changes every day on tour, and I think that's true for everybody in the band. You connect with songs for different reasons, as you venture onward. I'm sure 10 years ago, my favorite song was this. It's certainly not that song now. We could go out on the next tour and my favorite song could be, God, I'm really loving playing The Hound. Something about The Hound of Blood and Rank is like really speaking to me. And then a couple days go by and, maybe it's Mother Superior. I'm reacquainted with that because we're playing it in kind of a different way. And like, it just is constantly evolving, constantly changing. Right now, we've been off for too long. You know what, Dev? They're all my favorites. But ask me again after the third day of tour. I'll have a different answer for you. But, since we're doing the second leg of the No World Tour, I really do look forward to playing all of it. What are some of your favorite snare sounds you've had on albums? Great question. Any tips on getting a good crack, like on Second Stage Turbine Blade? Joe, holy cow. Okay, so, all right, check it out. Second Stage Turbine Blade was recorded in a bedroom, in a kid's bedroom, a very talented kid who went on to do big things in the sound and audio design world. But we were all just kids. We had to stop at 5 o'clock when his parents got home. Like you'd see his parents' car coming down the road. You're like, hurry up, get that take. We were in a bedroom, but I was never really a celebrated drum tuner. I only know how to really get my sound. And we had this kind of like good sounding, but definitely punk sounding record. And we took it to Mike Birnbaum and Chris Bittner. And pretty much based on my relationship with them, they mixed that record during the commercial breaks from the World Series. The Yankees were in the playoffs of the World Series. And he said, I'll mix it, but I'm not mixing during the game. So we'd watch the game And I tell this joke a lot, but it's really true. If the Yankees were winning, Mike Birnbaum was like, I think you guys got a future. This song, I like this song. If the Yankees were losing, he would seriously be like, let's mix this piece of shit song. Because that's Mike. And, he's a little rough around the edges. But yeah, the drum sounds on that record are, again, just loud. You could tell who their allegiance was to in the band. Those are the loudest drums ever. But I like that. And I think it serves Coheed well. It's very upsetting and frustrating when we make a record and the drums are kind of buried or quiet. It's just, even in Keeping Secrets, I remember Steve, the drummer from Circa Survive, when we first met them. Now we've been friends with them for almost 20 years. But when I first met Steve, he was like, why would you change the drum sounds? And I was like, Steve, I don't know. You think that was my idea? The drums are loud, but I kept asking the producers, like, hey, like, we have like an established thing. The drums pop and they're loud. And it's not that the drums are quiet on In Keeping, but it's a total page turn. But I think, Mike and Chris, the producers, they viewed records through a much different lens than we did. And really we benefited from that kind of classic rock, old school way of recording, all live, all recorded to tape and shit. So it was a very kind of old school thing. But any tricks? Fuck with it till it sounds good and hit it right. That's my real advice. Fuck Jerry Marotta, really famous, probably the best drummer, chops wise, pocket wise that I've ever seen and got to know personally. He told me once when I was a kid, I was very young. He said, get it close and then use one or two lugs to kind of dictate the sound from there. And that is a trick and a tool that has really, 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 really served me. And that's what I've always done. And I drive sound guys nuts sometimes because I get my sound. And if they ask for anything outside of that, I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm not, I can't make them sound like, I can't bring them way up. I like them loose-ish. Same thing with the snare. As a kid, I liked it really tight. Now I like it to have a body, but it still has to crack. But a lot of that crack comes from the way you hit it. I'll shut up about snare drums now. I just want to know if you're super cute. I mean, hello. How could I not know? That's a joke. I used to be like a fairly handsome kid. It's all downhill from here. You go post 40, forget it. It's all over. Crashing and burning. But thank you. All jokes aside, that makes my day. Oh, it's Shiva. Yeah, of course. That means we must not have a lot of people asking questions. But all it takes, somebody asked me a snare drum question. I'll go on for the whole hour. How does it feel to not play Welcome Home on tour for a change? Good question. Silly, fun, because, there's got to be like some fans. We know the diehards love it, but, we try to like make a set that's kind of broad. We want to touch on all the records, but we thought this was the perfect opportunity to kind of not play that song. I do believe, I don't quote me on the year, but like maybe 2013 or something, we did a tour without Welcome Home. Maybe it was short-lived. Maybe it was only a week run or a 2-week run or something. But yeah, it's funny, man. That's just a song you got to play. And what's funny? I enjoy playing it still. I enjoy it because it's the last song and I know I'm about to eat dinner after that song. I enjoy it because the energy from the audience, that's why we enjoy it. I mean, when we have to play that song at rehearsal, it is not fun. But when we play it for you guys, it takes on a whole new life. And that's true of a lot of the songs we've played a million times, we draw, God, it sounds like such a cliched, corny thing to say, but it's really true. We draw our energy from y'all's energy, from your guys' energy. That's the blood to us of the live performance. Top 5 active drummers. I don't know that I can name 5 drummers. I don't know who the fuck, what, I don't know. My top 5 active drummers, Jerry Marotta, a guy named Chicken, Chris Gartman, Ed Ciccone. I mean, these are the people that I really, really learned from. Now, I'm being somewhat facetious. I do have a lot of drummers that I look up to. The drummer from Kill Switch, and it's not like we're super close friends, but he's one of my favorite metal drummers. And he's just, he's up there in terms of metal with speed and precision, and he's just such a nice guy. But he's actually a really big influence on me, even though we're completely different players. Jerry Marotta, who I brought up, I mean, this guy has played with, I mean, so many, a laundry list of like world-class talents. Peter Gabriel, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I mean, Jerry Marotta is the kind of drummer you go, you know, you show up to play somewhere and he's just putting it down. And, you know, like that could go over some people's heads. But like any professional musician watches Jerry play and says, oh, shit. There's another guy, you know, I grew up in this really blessed way where I was kind of around these players. And, you know, I met George Clinton when I was a child. I was a kid and George was recording. And I was playing on King Crimson's drum sets when I was 11 years old. And Levon Helm from the band, out on Cripple Creek, she made me when I don't even know the words. Take a load. I just learned Take a Load off Annie. It's not Annie, that it's Fanny. I just learned that like 4 years ago. Take a load off Fanny. I thought it was Take a Load off Annie. But anyway, Levon Helm told me as a kid, he goes, how many piece kit do you play? It's kind of my impression of the way he talked. And I had to think about it because I'm a kid. No one had ever asked me that. And I'm like, 5-piece. He goes, that's 3 drums too many. I tell that story all the time because it's a flipping great story. Those are the drummers that turn me on. But you say top 5 active drummers. God, it's tough, man. I mean, Jerry, Chick, and Chris Gartman will be just the drummer from 3, but also the drummer from a band, Peace Bomb. These are drummers that are worth going to check out. Leave this and go check out Peace Bomb. Their first record is on Apple Music. It's called Is Was. Came out long after they broke up. This was a band with no money getting in the studio quick to make a record, but it's so out there. And I realize it's kind of dated in some ways, but in other ways, way ahead of its time. And that's where a lot of like the pillars of my creative drumming come from. But yeah, I'm not a real drum nerd, you guys. I think I've made that pretty clear. Like I'm not studying drums. I play more piano than I do the drums, but it's worked for me. And I love that I'm a drummer. I love that I'm a drummer, but I don't sit here every day studying other drummers. I come from a place of soul, and when a song speaks to me, I'm able to just become a part of it. And until it stops working, I'm not going to change. But you know, I'm studying the guys that I'm up close and personal with. I mean, I could, you know, Carter Buford is amazing. I still fuck with him. I mean, Questlove, man. I mean, these are old school guys, but like Questlove is so dope. There's too many drummers today. All right, anyway. Are you excited for Aftershock? That question just went away. Okay, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, of course I am. I'm excited for everything. Is Mike Todd okay? I'm that dude that brought Claudio back his Gibson SG. Wish I could have met you that night, but you were sick after the Chicago show back in 2017. Haven't heard from him in a while. Okay. I never want to breach the trust, especially of an old friend, especially with the kind of, you know, the landmines that have been strewn about me and Mike Todd's relationship. I mean, me and Mike Todd have had a great relationship. In fact, at the Atlanta show with Coheed just a few months ago, I had the crowd. Some people had asked about Mike, so I took a video of the crowd, and people said such like moving and lovely things. We miss you, Mike. We love you, Mike. And I sent it to him, and he was so deeply moved. But Mike is doing great by all accounts. But I haven't heard anything bad. I've talked to Mike a bunch of times, and I think Mike is doing great. He was in pre-law school. You know, he's living his life. Not being in a band after, in your heart, it's your band. Like, it's hard to explain, but like, as the band just transitioned into like, I mean, let's be real, like just Claudio, like, we don't have shirts that say Joshy O. It like, I think we always thought that a band, we knew the drummer's name of a band. We knew who the bass player was. We kind of grew up in that era. We knew everybody's name from a band. And then it was really hard to like kind of transition into this place where it's all about one guy. And I think it was really tough for like maybe, well, all 3 of us. Then on top of that, like as this success is happening and you're scared shitless and we let the drugs kind of take over, I think there's a lot of like embarrassment. And I know this, and you know what? I'm actually only speaking from my experience, but I know that Mike, I know we identify with each other's experience here. And then post that, beyond all that, there's, in Mike's heart, Coheed is still his band. He still feels an attachment and a connection to it. And he also helped build this band. I mean, I can't stress it enough. If there's no Mike Todd, there's no Coheed and Cambria. In the early going, Mike was like our manager. Before we had a manager, it was Mike. Mike was the guy like that the label would talk to. Mike was the guy that drove probably 80% of the time. And maybe if it was 70 and Travis drove 30, but Mike drove and really handled a lot and helped to build this thing. And I think he feels really forgotten about. Now, I think some stuff went down that I can't speak on, but I've heard his side. I've heard the fan side. And it seems really ugly, you guys. It seems really bad. Like, I don't want to breach anyone's trust or, disrespect anybody's friendship. But the short answer is Mike is doing great. And I hope this stuff resonates. Mike, I think, being not in a band is painful. And, yeah, I don't know. I could talk about that all day. With the success of Dunes and now PFI Tour, Coheed are not going anywhere, right? I don't know. I worry about it all the time, actually. We'll see. I don't know, man. I'm not involved in any of that stuff. Like, I asked Claude years ago, I was like, how come you don't do a prize fighter tour? And he's like, why? Like, when I tour, it's with you guys. And I was like, oh, you should go do a prize fighter tour. But I don't know that I fully grasped that, like, it's Coheed's tour manager, it's Coheed's guitar tech, it's Coheed's sound guy. Yeah, it's just like, it seems like everybody's going except me. That's what it feels like. But at the same time, I'm excited for my friend Claudio. He should go do this, Does it spell? I don't know. I mean, prize fighter records don't really sell like Coheed records, not even close. Which is funny because you'd think anything Claudio does would be huge, but they have an audience, obviously, and I think this is something Claudio should do. So I'm not like mad, but I am scared. I'm worried that this could be the beginnings of the end of Coheed, sure, because I've dedicated, even though I left for a few years and came back, this is my entire life. But then again, being in a band is painful. Like, you don't have any real ownership over any of the stuff, and you're just kind of like along for the ride. But I'm deeply protective of Coheed, and I am scared about that. Let's hope not. You probably asked that with an air of like silliness, but let's hope not, because that would be bad. Any memories of working with Rick Rubin you could share? Well, I never worked with Rick Rubin, so no, I have no memories of working with Rick Rubin. That was the first record I didn't do with them, but I've heard some stories. Yeah, I don't know how much the other guys worked with Rick Rubin either, but I think they had a meeting at his house once. What fictional character do you most identify with? Oh, that's a cool question. Well, here's a funny story. So years ago when that movie Punch Drunk Love came out with Adam Sandler, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, was like, before I saw it, was like, we saw this Adam Sandler movie. Oh my God, Josh, it's you. And I took it as like a compliment. I'm like, oh, Adam is pretty funny. You know what? I am a funny guy, man. I am. And then I saw the movie and he's like crying all the time and punching stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, what must people think of me? That's a pretty good one. I don't know. Jason Voorhees. I don't know, man. What fictional character do I most? That's such a good question. I'd have to think about it. I don't really. Michael Bluth. I don't know. Michael Bluth is my answer from Arrested Development. How difficult was it to stay sober when you rejoined the band and had to be in those same situations as when you used? Well, terrific question, but not difficult in the least bit. Being in a band made it hard to do drugs. This is like a common misconception. And Charlotte, really, really great question, by the way. Being in a band made it incredibly difficult to do drugs. Incredibly difficult. New city every day. Being a heroin addict, it's not the kind of drug you just walk into a party. Who's got the heroin? No, it's done in back alleys and in dark corners. And, it's this thing that like everyone knows it's bad. You lose friends over this. People say, what do you do? What's wrong? What are you doing? So it's not spoken about loudly. So when you pull into new cities where it might, it's easy to find weed or honestly easy to find cocaine, probably much easier. A drug like heroin was actually quite difficult to find. So being in a band made being a junkie hard. So it wasn't difficult at all. And I had enough time away from shooting heroin that I knew what a blessing it was to get this opportunity. And I had my blinders on. Blaze James, the manager of Coheed, had told me that he was not totally sold on this as an idea, that Claudio and Travis pushed for this. But Blaze had every right to say that. I didn't give Blaze many reasons to have faith in me. And it's funny because I think me and Blaze are really pretty close nowadays and have been over the last decade plus. But at the time, he sat there at Claudio's table and there was some tears, a lot of tears on my end, shocker. And, there's some crying, man. And it was deep and really powerful because they tricked me. They had said, hey, man, do you want to maybe play on the new Prize Fighter record? And I was like, oh, I'd love to. It's like, guys, God, opportunities are hard to come by. And then we're playing the Prize Fighter stuff. And the first song Claude plays me is Domino the Destitute. And I said, holy shit, Prize Fighter done changed. But I honestly didn't even really think that it was Coheed. I thought maybe me and Claude would do another band. That's what I'm kind of daydreaming about. And, soon after they told me, like, listen, that was Coheed stuff. And I was like, oh, shocker. But I didn't really know. But, Blaze had said to me point blank, like, I'm not sold on this. I'm worried. I'm worried about you coming back. And my objective was to never make them regret inviting me back into, again, I want to stress this, my band. I'm of the mindset that Coheed wouldn't have a record deal without me. I went out on the road with 5 strangers in a van or in an RV with a hole in the floor. I didn't know any of these kids. And I went out handing out CDRs. And it was the singer of that band that got us a record deal with Equal Vision. A label, mind you, that no one wanted to sign us except one guy, Dan Sandshaw. It's not like they heard it and they all were like, this is the next thing. No, they heard it. Ashton walked in and was so cocky that they were like, oh my God, we have to listen to this. It's going to be awful. And then they kind of clowned it. And then Dan Sancho was like, hold on a second. This might be something. And they happen to have money in the budget. And my point, I think, is that it's such a fragile, delicate thing. You change one aspect of the ascension of the band, it could have changed everything. But, I operate in the realm of like, I don't know that we're just that good. I think a lot of strokes of luck, kind of came our way. And that doesn't water down all of the hard work, leaving home. It takes getting used to living in a van for 9 months out of the year. And any touring band will tell you that. You don't know anybody till you live in a van with them. But I'm so deeply rooted in the kind of rise of Coheed and Cambria. I do feel a lot of ownership over that. And it's something I'm really proud of. And it means a lot to me. So when I say my band, for a long time, it really felt like it was a piece of me. And I still do. I'm very protective of that. But, things kind of evolve and change over time. And I guess that's just the natural order of things. Favorite Coheed album? Probably Second Stage, honestly. But I love them all, even the ones I didn't play on. I mean, No World is a really powerful record to me. I was pissed off. It was so good, honestly. It fucking really ticked me off. Hardest song for you to play live? I don't know that there are ones that sometimes in rehearsal for like a day or two are a little rough around the edges. I can't even think of what they are. But, I mean, one time, Rise Nyanasha all of a sudden threw me for a loop. I could play it with my eyes closed. And then one day, those triple kicks threw me for a loop. But that happens. And this is something that can like kind of transpose. It's not just about drums. This is kind of in life. Sometimes things that come natural to you, all of a sudden one day you're thinking about them from a slightly different angle. And all of a sudden it becomes hard. And you've got to kind of work your way through that. And I like to think, at least my experience in my life is, once you work through that kind of muddy water, then you've got it forever. And that was true with Rise Nyanasha. One day I just couldn't, who knows, the tension on the kick pedal was probably a little different than I was used to. And then I started thinking about it. And that's my worst enemy. Years ago, I've told some of these stories before, but years ago, a drummer sat down, Will Noon, who was in a band, Breaking Pangea, who went on to play with the band Stray Light Run, and then played in that band Fun right around their enormous ascension. They were one of the biggest bands in the country, and Will was drumming for them, and got to see him on TV all the time, and it was really cool. Early on in our careers, he sat down and he said, "What is that fill in Everything Evil?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just da 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 da," and you land on the one. And he's like, "Oh, I love the way it lands on the one." And he's trying to play it, and I'm showing it to him. I could not play it right for like a year after that. I had never really thought about it. It's just was a natural thing. I let the music take me there. I didn't say, "Oh, and right here, what I'm going to do is do a fill that starts with 2 hits on the snare, then I'm throwing in that kick drum. But get ready, rack, floor, kick, kick, floor, floor, 1." No, I just let the music take me there. I think I've practiced enough. I think I've gotten to a level of playing that I'm able to do that and just let the music take me there. So I never thought about it. Once I had to teach somebody it or think about it, oh my God, it was a lot of muddy water to get through. And I blew that fill. Not train wrecked, but I never popped it for like a whole year. And then once I got through that kind of murky water, I just had it forever. And so maybe it's like a necessary thing. The hardest part about drumming is the stamina. Sometimes by song 3, I'm like, how am I going to get through this tonight? My arms are killing me. And then you have to dial it back. You know, to this day, I'm not the player I am in the studio live. I get overexcited, and I've got to try to find that marriage of the excitement. You know, the band would think something was wrong if they looked back and I was just like, mouth not open. Come on, could you imagine? But yeah, that's my kind of cross to bear. That's the hardest part of being a professional drummer to me. Do you like the bear and ukulele we made for you? Yeah, sure do. It's right down in my movie room. I could have probably done a lot better with my backdrop here, but I did think that window was fresh. But yeah, I probably should have done this in the movie room where I have the ukulele and the bear. They're both in there. If you could only eat one food for a week straight, what would it be? I think I've eaten pizza every single night this week, as if you can't. I'm going to go on tour and lose the same 10 pounds I always use and then come home and put it on. I have been, every night I'm outside working on my property till like some nights 10 o'clock at night. I don't even eat dinner till midnight some nights because we're out there just working. This was the summer of projects. I've learned a great deal. I've made some really special friendships. I've been in the gym every day for the last few weeks because I kind of took a break. Like the projects consume my life, but I think most nights we're so tired. I'm so sunburned from being outside today. Me and my wife, she crushes. My wife is crazy. She built new shed doors and just a lot of great stuff. We're having the house painted right now. But we're so tired we can't cook dinner. So I think we've had pizza 5 nights in a row, but I don't know, some other awful food that's terrible for you. How much have you changed up the compositions for off the songs with albums with Chris P? Do any stick out in your minds for ones you've changed the most? Well, there's only Black Rainbow songs. And, you know, Chris Penny's like one of the best drummers in the world. But I think the most challenging part of Black Rainbow is I can't hear what the fuck is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I will be changing them. When we play Juggernaut, I kind of play it in a way that I don't want to get wrapped up in like better or worse. You know, when I watch Chris play Everything Evil, I'm like, oh, that ain't it, you know, but it is it. It's Chris's version. And that's, you know, I would never go toe to toe with Chris. We're different drummers. And maybe it's a byproduct of I couldn't be that kind of drummer, but that like Drum Olympics, ultra fast double pedal, that's just not, I never wanted to be that, but I respect the shit out of it. Chris is world class, but yeah, Black Rainbow's challenging because of sonically, it's awfully hard to tell what's going on. You know, obviously, I think everybody knows this. We're going to be playing more songs off that in the very near future. Which of the albums did you find most memorable, most challenging, most disappointing? I assume that was going to say disp. I assume that's disappointing. Most memorable. God, guys, it's like picking kids. Like if I had 5 of my children and you guys were like, hey, which of those kids is your favorite? They're all memorable. Wendy, what's up, girl? They're all memorable, man. I know it seems like kind of a phoned in shitty answer, But that is the truth, you guys. They're all memorable. Disappointing's a bit loaded because you know what? You know what? Okay. So if the answer was for disappointing, The Color Before the Sun, you know what Blaze told me about that record? And he was spot fucking on. He said, when it's all said and done, that record's going to exist as this like really off the beaten path, really kind of different for a band that's made its like bread and butter on being different. This is going to be a standout record. And I love that it's that. At the time, it was a little hard for me to swallow the sonically because we went in and at that point had played in a way that I don't want to say Coheed is a chip on our shoulder, but maybe we do. And we walked into that studio and it does something to you. It fires you up to see guys that have been making records for 30 years say things like, you're the best drummer I've ever recorded. The drum tech shows up and is like, I can't believe I'm standing here next to you. Like, blah, blah, blah. And it fires you up. And we went in there so well rehearsed. That's what Coheed does. We hold up in Claudio's basement at his house that he was selling. So we're in this like empty, beautiful house, just set up in the basement and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. We didn't suck the life out of the songs, but we came in so prepared. We recorded Color Before the Sun live, and I was so proud of us. Live, meaning if somebody blew a lick, we redid it. All got our takes. Color Before the Sun is more of a live record than a lot of bands' actual live record. It's a live record, and I was so proud. It's exactly what Blaze said. Like, it isn't disappointing. At the time, it was a little hard after the Afterman records. I thought we were going to go, but Claudio will do that to you. You think you're going to go this way? He's like, nope, we're going this way. And it's like, I've learned at this point, follow Claudio. You know, I've learned at this point to follow Claudio. He's brilliant. And I don't always agree with everything, but usually I get it like years later because I'm slow to it. And I say, oh, you know what? That was a good idea, Claude. At the time, Color Before the Sun was maybe a little disappointing, but I enjoy all the records we make. And they're all memorable for different reasons. They all have some bad stuff. They all have some good stuff. They're like our children. It's all very deep and very important to me. Did you keep in touch with Claudio and Travis when you were off getting clean? No, we didn't talk for years. I didn't give those guys any reasons to like me. I was really poor. I had behaved really poorly. And we were friends for years. Obviously, we were in a band and all of us have flaws, you know, like I wouldn't like air out what those flaws are, but we've all, when you live in a van with somebody, you see somebody's best, you know, on Wednesday, I'm cracking jokes. People are crying, laughing, and we're brothers. And then on Thursday, we hate each other and there's fighting and we're punching the walls and like, so you get like the full gamut, right? You know somebody, that's where that saying comes from. You don't know somebody till you live in a van with them. So we were as close can be. And then we had achieved this thing that those guys were angry with me and they had every right to be. I mean, I think that was a big part of healing for me to say like, wow, Claudio, Travis, and Blaze maybe aren't the bad guys here, because for years I blamed them. If you can imagine being so lost and so trapped in like the web of your own pride and ego that you couldn't even see that, hey, maybe I was wrong. I was incapable of taking any responsibility for my own actions. Everything was someone else's fault. And then one day it changed, and I don't know how. I wish I had this great story of the day it changed. I don't know. Just one day I looked in the mirror and I was like, I guess I had to face reality. So no, we did not keep in touch. One day I called Blaze. Blaze called me and he had to talk to me. And I said, hey man, for whatever it's worth, I am sorry. I think I've kind of lightly expressed that in the past, but if those guys ever wanted to talk, I sure would be into that. And much to my surprise, he called back and said, hey, I kind of talked to those guys and they would be into a meetup. And I was like, are you serious, man? Because I just wanted to, you know, I think they knew from afar too. I'm back in another band. I'm on a major label. Like my career had started over. And, you know, the band that I was in was a band called Terrible Things. We signed to Universal Motown. We made a record in Alabama. We were out on tour. and we gave it the old college try. It didn't land, but we made a record that kind of has more of an audience now than ever before. It's a really fantastic record. Probably a bit safe for my liking. I think Fred kind of took, Fred was never a pop songwriter. He's kind of like this indie rock, weird, write these kind of neat riffs, but not like the strongest songwriter, honestly, if I'm being honest, in the Breaking Pangea days. Learned a lot of stuff that with Taking Back Sunday, and then really implemented all that in Terrible Things. But I don't know, to me, it seemed like regressive. It's like, dude, I learned this at 17. Like, yeah, fine, have a 3-minute pop song. Let's have a 19-minute pop. Let's fucking get weird, man. But Fred's not about getting weird because he had transformed himself into like a really terrific songwriter. And I was part of that band. And without Terrible Things, there's no connection back to Coheed. But I think they had heard from afar, hey, Josh is out on tour. And people bring me up. I had enough friends. Fred told me that he went and saw Coheed. Fred's band, Breaking Pangea, was the first band to ever bring Coheed on tour. So there was a real bond that continues to this day. Me and Fred are super close friends. And he's friends with all the guys in Coheed. And Fred went up to Claudio and he's like, hey, man, that's my Fred impression. Hey, man. It almost sounds like Jim Brewer from Half Baked. But that, in my mind, I see Fred. Hey, man, sounded really good. And Travis contested this once. I don't know if Travis, but according to Fred, Claudio was like, yeah, but it isn't like it used to be. And Fred told me that. I was like, wow, really? Claudio said that? Wow. I was moved because I had felt so forgotten about. And again, like, I get it, man. Those guys gave me so many chances. Whatever. This has all been talked about before, but it's really the truth. So when they called and we met up, that was the first time we talked in probably 4.5 years, which is really a long time, man. And then I remember I asked them, I said, did you guys like the Terrible Things record? And those fucking guys were like, oh, we didn't listen to it. And I was like, what? You never listened to it? But I'm different than those guys. Like, I would go listen to the Coheed records because, like, I don't know, man. I was so curious. I knew it would be good. I didn't think it would be bad. But they made No World for Tomorrow is a straight banger. Are you more in favor of the newer techno sound that Coheed has or the classic sound? Well, I sure like the loud drums. Okay, here's the thing. I like a good little here and there. That's kind of me and Claudio connect on that shit. I love that shit. Like in Evagria, before the second verse, it just goes. I think that happened weirdly, and I was like, yo, that has to go in. And me and Claude start jumping up and down, like, yo, that's the shit, So I like an element of that stuff. I think it's delicate, and I do, like, sometimes it's stepping all over me, and I'm just like, oh, God, it's the anti-groove. It's the fucking total opposite of groove, but it's not. I'm just, Claudio has his own pocket and his own sense of things, and, like, usually he hears these counter rhythms in ways that like seem intrusive to me. And then like down the road, I kind of get it. Sometimes I think it's too much. I'm not going to say what songs, but sometimes I do think it's too much. But in general, I am a fan of that. Classic sound, I just want the fucking drums to be heard because I'm ready to rip shit. Hi, today is my birthday. Just turned 30. Oh, just a baby. 2 questions. 1, can I get a happy birthday? Obviously. And 2, what is something you can tell yourself during a rough moment to try to pull yourself back? Okay, first of all, happy birthday, Affy? I don't know how to say your name. Happy birthday, AIFE. 30. God, hey, here's some real words of wisdom from a 43-year-old old fart like myself. My 30s, best years of my life. My 40s are taking over, though. My 40s are kind of even better. But my 30s, what a great decade. Wisdom, you get a little bit of life experience. You're not a dumb 22-year-old knucklehead out there just being a maniac. And you start carving out putting your real life together. And so my 30s were really fantastic. What is something you can tell yourself during a rough moment to try to pull yourself back? A friend told me recently, things are going astray, things are chaotic, things are wild. And he just says to himself, it's the journey of life. And I've said that to myself, I think, in different incarnations over my life. But I try to stay positive. Sometimes I can be a little too down on myself. I'm a soft guy, man. I'm a nice person. I like this version of me. I like myself. I spent a long time really not liking myself. I didn't like the guy I looked at in the mirror. I didn't like my life. That's not true anymore. I really like myself. And it's funny, all the things that I like most about myself, again, I know I've said this before, but they're the things I worked diligently to try to hide. That I'm kind of a soft guy, that I don't like violence. I don't like, there was a time when I was a kid, if you fucking talked funny to me, I'd punch you in the face, if you can imagine. But I wasn't ever really violent. I thought I had to be like that. I was terrified. I was terrified to get eaten alive. So I believe it or not, we're talking like high school age, but like I wasn't a bully. I got bullied to the point where I was this anxious, neurotic, anxious mess that like violence was the answer. Like that was like the first question people would ask about you. Josh seems cool. Can he fight? Like what? Stupid kid shit. But like the real me had to stay hidden from everybody. So I like this version of me, the guy I've been for the last, I don't know, 15 fucking years. It's been a long time, but I tell myself to stay positive and to try to, have my shortcomings. I get stressed out. I get all frustrated. Thank God my wife's a saint and I've got some good friends around me to kind of help to guide me. I really believe that, like, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I really believe that God or the universe, something has placed people in my path because they're so like useful in like emotionally to me. It's like I'm having a hard time with this and boom, here's someone in my path that I can learn from about how to better navigate my own life. If you're listening, for all of us, if you're listening, the signs are out there. If your eyes are open, the signs are there. I've really learned that, man. And like, it's beyond like coincidence at this point. Fat Mike says in that No Effects book that he thinks there's a race of mole men under the earth that just guide him because he always like narrowly escapes trouble. And, oh, I think I'll head over here. Oh, wow, this works. Oh my God, I'm in a huge band. Hey, I'll go over here. Oh, I have a huge record label. Like, I kind of feel the same way, man. Like, there's too many coincidences. There's too many, oh my God, this is stressing me out. And then something that can help me navigate it is right in front of my face. And it's usually like another human being. And like, I guess, I tell myself it's the journey of life. I tell myself it's going to be okay and to stay positive because when you invite the darkness in, darkness begets darkness. It's like dark negative thoughts only serve dark negative thoughts. And that's hard, man. Sometimes it's not easy when you want to rip your fucking hair out. And then you look in the mirror and you say, what happened to the handsome young kid? I'm fucking old. I'm in the back of all the photographs. We're on a magazine cover. I'm in the back. You're so mad at yourself. You say, wait a minute. No, I'm in a band. I play in a band. Some people fucking bust their ass in a strange country. They don't even speak the language and they work harder than probably I've ever worked in my life. Although playing drums on stage is fucking physically hard, trust me. But you know what I'm getting at. And like, try to count the blessings. That's my best advice. And that is what I do. And I'm a pretty positive person and I try to stay there. How are your dogs doing? They're doing really good. Do you have any advice for local bands trying to make it? Great question. I mean, dogs are great. They're getting older, which is hard to witness, but they're doing really great. Copper was a little kind of messed up, but he seems to be great. He's back to being a fucking pain in my ass. I love him so much. There's no, I love my dogs with like a love reserved. It's like a very singular love. I love my dogs powerfully. Any advice? Yeah. My dad told a neighbor when we were kids, he said, you got to be in it to win it. Then he came inside and said, yeah, I stole that from the New York Lottery. That's the slogan, but there's truth to it. Like, I think like you got to plug yourself in. Long gone are the days of like the president of show business is not going to show up and discover you. The music business loves what's going on now. There's no more development. They don't develop you. You have to develop yourself. They're not even taking a call unless you have like 100,000 followers. It's like that has its pros and cons. I'm not necessarily for or against that, but like, I'm for it. Anything that puts art in the artist's hands without any kind of interference from, commercial entities, I'm for. But the whole landscape like changes every 10 years. So my advice would be, and again, like I'm not in a young YouTube or TikTok sensation band. I'm in a tried and true rock and roll band that's done it for 20 years and keeps growing, which is, you know, pretty singular in its own right. My advice would be to get out there, play shows. But this is all stuff people know. I mean, yeah, like I guess, you know, exist on social media and just bring your art to the people and understand this is not a merit-based industry. You know, a friend said to me the other day, if you don't make it, you didn't work hard enough. And I was just like, the best players I know, I think that's a worthy line of thinking, but the music business is not merit-based. I mean, the best, most talented people I know mostly don't make a living playing music. Look no further than the radio if you want to just see if the cream doesn't rise to the top, guys. So, and I hate to sound like such an elitist prick, but come on, man. There's an X factor thing. There's a lot of factors, but luck is one of them. But in a lot of ways, I think that's a worthy line of thinking because I think you can make your own luck. And I like thinking along those terms. I'm just, you know, I'm not bitter. I've just seen it. I don't have to look very far. I just look at my brother, who I think is prolific. And I know a lot of you guys are fans of Joey, but like, he deserved to make it. He was the best that I ever saw. And it just, you tell me how they go on tour with Dream Theater and as an opening band are doing like $5,000 just in their records. Every night people are picking their jaws up off the floor. And then 2 months later, they come back to that city and nobody's there. And then they do it again. They go out with Coheed or Porcupine Tree, or they do these big tours and like they kill. And then it just never happened. And it's like, no one knows the answer. That can be frustrating, but no one's going to get discovered sitting inside. You've got to go out and you've got to play. And, you know, I wish you guys luck. It's really hard to carve out a career in this business. Funniest thing to happen on the road. Dude, it's a worthwhile question, but like, I always think of the best answers for this shit at 3 a.m, laying in bed, like, oh my God, that one time, that was hilarious. But you know, let me answer by saying this. When you live in such close proximity to people, the jokes that are funny to you guys in that bus or van do not translate in the real world. Like, it just wouldn't be funny to you guys, believe me. It's some kind of inside joke. Or somebody, one time years ago, Mike Todd would talk to our tour manager, but with his hand, like the hand was talking to him. And it would make me cry. My stomach would hurt laughing. But it's not funny to anyone else. That's why these stories are funny. Or they're horribly X-rated, and I'm not sharing them on social media. So I'll get back to you on that one. Question from social media. Why focused on your past addiction when you left it behind so long ago? Good question. I think, you know, so many people are dying. That's the real answer. We've all lost people in the drugs and alcohol world, but I think fentanyl had kicked things up to a place where I don't want to sound so like self-righteous. I hate that. I really do. But it did feel like that it was cowardly to not talk about my controversial way that I pieced my life back together. So I thought, I was scared to do this. I still am scared to do this. You know, it hurts me when like my way of life doesn't align with someone else's idea of sober, when like I don't get high. I don't get high every day. I go to the gym every day. I work hard, work my ass off on my property or on Coheed Records. Or my life is filled with things I'm passionate about. I'm just so night and day different than the guy I was when I was shooting dope. That guy's far enough in the past that I can now really turn around, dissect those things. And I really want to talk, you know, to be perfectly honest, I don't want to fucking do AMAs on YouTube and TikTok and all this bullshit. I don't want to do any of this. I want to talk at schools to kids, the people really in the line of fire in terms of like new addicts, or when this stuff really starts to take hold. Because I know for me, it was like college age when certain behaviors were kind of like implemented. Now, addiction touches all walks of life, all ages. But like for me in my life, college age was when some of the pillars that became addiction were kind of rooted. And other kids, you know, they boozed with us and they take pills here and there, but they were smart enough to veer off. And I think my ego was the reason that I thought I was the exception to the rule, that addiction happened to other people. It wasn't going to happen to me. And what a foolish thing to think. And I just want to help kids, honestly. I want to help young people, college age people, high school people. And I think my story is worthy, but God, I feel icky saying that, you know, it's like, oh God, but I don't know if there was a bunch of 60-year-olds here that were dope fiends and I could help them, you know, I would sign up to do that in a heartbeat. It's not just kids, but I don't know. I mean, after I had enough friends die, and then I had a lot of friends OD, and a lot of friends die recently, that I just felt like it's maybe time. I'm far enough away from my heroin addiction to really talk about it. So, but that was a good question, man. That was a really good question, because I do have a deep desire to just leave this in the past. It's embarrassing. It's not something I like talking about. But after the 17th week in a row, yo, did you hear blah, blah, blah died? Oh, man, we got to do something. And this is all what else can I do? We're trying. We have a whole team of people coming up with things that we can do to help grow this, because it's hard to make anybody give a shit about things. And, you know, everybody here in this YouTube thing, you know, I appreciate it. You know, I'm like the most mildly famous guy on planet Earth. The Z list, but it may be no list, really. I'm just not really famous. So, but this is a story that I think is worth telling. And, you know, there's a lot of shit happening. I don't know how to say this. This company came and they're filming a documentary about my life, and it's just flattering, but also makes me feel really silly. This all drum set confessional, I keep almost calling it dashboard confessional. It's just such a close name. I didn't name it. It's a book we were working on, and it kind of morphed into this. I don't know what's going on with the book, but it's a long process to write a book. It's been going on for a year. So, but yeah, I think it's a worthwhile tale, but I do feel silly saying that, but it's a great question. Let me shut up. What are your thoughts on Cali sober? I'm not sure what that is. Is that where like you're sober, but you smoke weed and drink? I don't know what Cali sober is. I've heard it. I don't really know. Or is that when you just don't do heroin and you do other drugs? Because I was Cali sober for a long time. I would, you know, you want to earn people's favor. So everyone has either dropped you or turned their backs on you with good reason. You are a fucking junkie. You hang out with nothing but gangsters and doing gangster shit, and you're awful, and you lie, and you're sick all the time. Your life is a mess. It's an awful mess. And then you don't do heroin for 2 days because you're on a 2-day bender of cocaine, and you say, I'm sober, bro. I've been clean for 2 weeks. Dude, bro, I've been clean for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, you're on this bender. Yeah, it's just such an awful way to live. If that's Cali sober, I don't know. I did that for years, and yeah, it wasn't real. It was a lie. It wasn't, you know. I walked up to my old neighbor once with a double shot of like Jameson, cigarette in my hand, and as she told the story, I think like, you know, I was clearly on cocaine, and I was like, Sue, how are you? And I could feel her she was put off. How are you, hon? How's everything going? You know, because everybody in my small town I grew up in knew I was small town boy made good, hometown boy made good, and then who blew it all. Hometown boy made good that then destroyed it and became exactly what the teachers thought he would. A fucking loser, junkie, out in the streets, at the bars, getting fucked up, you know, just a mess. And I saw her and I could feel her kind of, not disdain, but just, you know, she was icked out. And I was like, yeah, 3 weeks sober. And when she retold the story, she said, yeah, I saw Josh. His fucking nose was beat red. He had cocaine around the rim of his nose, cigarette in his hand, and a double shot that he shot back right in front of me. And then had the nerve to tell me he's 3 weeks sober. 3 weeks sober. I mean, I guess you do have to be 3 weeks sober, but in my experience, any opiate addict that's claiming 3 weeks sober is generally not sober. Like, to me, I thought that was a long time. 3 weeks clean, bro. But, you know, it was a web of deceit and lies. And, yeah. What's my favorite tattoo? Probably, okay, so I got a few here. Oh, is it this arm? Yeah. This tattoo is super dope. But you know, the hair grows over, but this is an artist, Jonathan in Colorado, who's a really, really terrific artist. I love that Grim Reaper. I think that's one of the dopest and certainly technically one of the best tattoos I have. But I love this little Jason Voorhees above it too from Friday the 13th Part 2. Sometimes I forget about that guy. I have a tattoo for my friend Bobby Delicious right here. Really cherish that. And then I do have some pretty bad tattoos, but I have some decent ones too. I like all my Jasons a lot. Oh, dude, Travis's brother-in-law did this zombie thing on my leg. It's like coming up out of the ground. Dude, he busted this thing out in like 2 hours too. Like, he was so fast. At one point during the tattoo, he stops and he hands me a glass of orange juice and he's like, "Why don't you drink that?" I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Bro, just drink it." And like, as the OJ goes down my throat, I like come to life. I'm just like, "Oh my God, I feel so much better." He's like, "All right, we'll keep going." And I was like, "Why? What happened?" He's like, "Dude, you were white as a ghost. We were worried you were going to go down." And I was like, "Holy shit, really?" And the OJ did. So that's a good tattoo trick, like orange juice. Although nowadays, people numb up for tattoos, I read. Shit, sign me up for all the tattoos. The last 10 tattoos I've got, I've been like, why did I do this? This was a terrible idea. Especially this one up here. I was like, this was a horrible, horrible, horrible idea. I got the tops of my feet done. My man Mike in San Antonio does a lot of stuff on me, but I haven't really let him do a big piece on me because I'm in town so briefly and I just don't. He did do this Mets tattoo. I mean, I like all my tattoos. I like even the bad ones. Some of them are bad, like the hearts with a gun in it that says "to protect." I was a very sad young man. It's the most emo. It's like bike. That rapper Sadistic told me once. He's like, "I like that it's like biker trashy," and I was like, you know what? I kind of like that. What sparked the swap from CNC drums to Tama between the Afterman and Color Before the Sun? Great question. Really terrific question. And astute. I give you credit for noticing that because it's a big change, but I can't. So CNC was and is an absolutely first class, terrific drum company. But I think even the people from CNC I'm still incredibly close with, God, I can't talk. I'm so tired. Incredibly close with Bill Cardwell, the owner of CNC drums. But they moved into a more kind of boutique-y, almost like Americana rock and roll setting, which that's fine. I applaud their move into that world. But for me, it just wasn't, that wasn't the drums. Those weren't the drums that I wanted to play for a band like Coheed. I hit those drums hard, you guys. I've never been a particularly strong guy, but the power of music moves through me. I hate to sound so corny, but it does something to me. I mean, I break things all the time because when I'm in that place, like I just play incredibly hard. And the CNC drums just seemed like they were like crying when I was hitting them. It was too hard for them. I always thought of Tama as kind of no soul, off the assembly line, corporate Japanese drums, no soul. Man, was I wrong. I just can't say enough about Tama. Like the head of Tama's A&R drum teched our last record in LA. Like Sam is my man from Tama, dude. I love Sam. I cannot say enough about Tama drums. It's made me a better player. They've been just like such an important ally. Let's be honest here, man. Like, not everybody in Coheed gets totally free stuff. Like, mostly the huge companies don't often give out stuff for 100% free. And Tama gives me all my stuff. They've endorsed me full on. And I'm lucky to be with a company like Tama. The drums have made me a better player in more ways than one, in a lot of tangible ways. And I just cannot say enough about Tama. But I also can't say enough about CNC. It wasn't that I didn't like CNC. It was a change of energy, a change of like kind of brand direction that sent me packing. I'm not, I like some of that boutique drum stuff, but that's not really my shit. Any chance of New Terrible Things? Great album. Well, thanks, Blake. Yeah, I often kind of daydream about doing a New Terrible Things record, but this time I got more juice. So get ready for Terrible Things' Dark Side of the Moon, because I'm not coming back to write 3-minute pop songs. Me and Fred are going to get weird. Fred's too good to just write these pop songs, man. We got to get weird, man. Let's get fucking crazy. Do you feel society as a whole is moving in the right or wrong direction regarding addiction? No, I think there's been a lot of positive things that have happened. Would I like to see us move faster in the right direction and more progress? Of course. What does that look like, though? What does more progress look like? I know in England, a lot of, well, I don't know this, but I remember watching this TV show. This was years ago, about a woman an old lady, when I was watching this, I was probably 25. So she was probably 50. She's probably my age. But she was a heroin addict, and she would get her drugs like kind of through the government. Now, I'm weary of government programs, even though we've got to have these programs. Medicaid helped save my life. I mean, I credit, my wife, and I credit moving to Albany, and I credit Terrible Things. Well, you know what else helped? Medicaid. And I got turned down for Medicaid twice. I did all the paperwork, everything, and I walked in, and to be perfectly honest, it was almost like the girl there could be barely bothered with helping me. And I wasn't comfortable with myself. I wasn't talkative. I wasn't charming at all. I wasn't nice, but I wasn't impolite. But it was almost as if she took pleasure in telling me no, stamping it no, however it worked. And then it turned out this is a microcosm for life in general. And I'm concerned about the people that don't have a friend that knows somebody at Medicaid, because it turned out a friend of mine, Joe, had a friend, a guy that he knew that worked at Medicaid, walked me into that office, and I walked out with Medicaid, and I was able to afford to go to the doctor. And without that moment in my life, my life looks drastically different. I'd like to see, programs more available. I got a message last night from an old friend of mine, the sister of one of my girlfriends, in one of my main high school girlfriend, who I loved very much, and I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. And of course, we're dumb, idealistic kids, but the love was real. I loved her very much, and we were together for years. So her sister reached out she's in this kind of tight spot where there's a young guy in her town that she is kind and gentle and nice, but happens to be a heroin addict. And she wants to help him. And she said there's no beds anymore in Kingston. There's private organizations that have to, because there's no more programs. Since COVID, they shut down like the detoxes. Now, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, I mean, we have to have some of these programs. Now, exactly what that looks like, I don't know, but I'm all for progress. I think we have made some progress. And I think in other ways like that, if post-COVID, there's no beds for anybody that needs help, that doesn't feel like progress. But, I don't know if it's a problem we can just throw all the money in the world at and fix it. I think we need like really comprehensive understanding of what the fucking problem is to begin with. I mean, and I know there's a lot of like disagreement but I think we all can agree on we want to save people's lives. I mean, God, not to get too far into this, because we're allowed to disagree. Whoever's on here with me, we are allowed to not see eye to eye. But years ago, there was talk of a shooting gallery opening up in Kingston. Now, at first glance, I get it. I fully understand why people are like, what? No, get that shit the fuck out of here. Absolutely not. I would feel the same way. But I've been to Europe enough times that I know it's about providing safe needles, providing a space that when people OD, there's someone there that can help. I mean, it's not all that different than Suboxone, really. Through the medical realm, it's a way of saving people's lives. So if they OD, there's somebody there. There isn't cops waiting around the corner. But I understand the nuance. And I don't even know that I'm for it. I just understand where the intent is. It's to save human lives. And maybe while they're there, they pick up a pamphlet. And I think people understood it as, now we're rewarding the junkies. We're going to give them more drugs. You don't give them their drugs there. It's a place they can go and get clean needles, so they're not sharing diseased needles in the streets, and someone can help to guide them if they do want help. There's somebody there to talk to them, clean needles, and a safe place to get high. Because once you're addicted, you're going to get high. You're going to get high. You are addicted. You are, again, sick is the word we use, but it's the wrong word. It's not sick. It's something entirely different than the flu. Does your nose run and your body ache? Sure, yeah, like the flu, but it's something else. The flu never made me feel like I was sitting next to myself. And the flu never, the flu can kill you. So I'm aware the flu is like deadly serious, but sick is just the best word we got. To me, it was something other than sick. And people are running from that, and they're sharing needles, and they're dying in alleyways, when all we were saying is, hey, all they were saying is, instead of shooting in an alleyway, there's programs in Europe and abroad that have had success with just setting up a place where junkies can shoot up, where there are medical professionals there to thwart the overdose. And now they're doing something like that just without the gallery, where Narcan, there's commercials on the radio every day, every commercial break, free Narcan, no questions asked. And I think that's progress. Let's save some fucking lives. It doesn't live into me. What kind of a hypocrite coward would I be if I said, fuck you, junkies? No, junkies are my people, and I'm their people, man. Like, inside the heart of every junkie is a tortured soul. And to be quite honest, as dark as it is, a lot of them just want to die. And I was one of them. And I just know that there's a place that gets better. It's like fucking, kumbaya as that sounds. It's reality. Because if I can get here, then I shouldn't be silent about how I've gotten here. And it just happens to not really align with AA or NA, but I put my life back together. I live a fulfilling life. I love myself again, and I want that for other people. So anyway, longest answer ever. Sorry, y'all. I'll get fucking long with the answer. Oh, shit. This is going to be over in a second. Did you have to replace a vice for a vice to ease into getting clean? Eating candy or junk food, binging shows, video games. First of all, that was my whole life before drugs. It just happens to be my life after drugs, too. A motherfucker loves candy and junk food. Binging shows. No, what heroin did was it removed all the things I loved. There was no more love for anything. Baseball, didn't care. Sex, didn't care. Fuck anything fun. Movies, shows. I had a 3,000 movie DVD collection. I sold it all for pennies on the dollar just to get a fix for the night, because I'd sell anything to not be sick. I could have a ring, right? This ring is worth something about this ring makes it worth $10 million, right? And I'm about to get sick, and a guy says, hey man, I'll give you $250 for it. And you're like, yo, you're crazy. Dude, this is worth $10 million. An hour later, that sickness is setting in. And if this guy knows, I'd sell it for anything to not be sick. I'd give him this ring as the sickness sets in, and you hate yourself for it. I've sold all my gear. I had to make amends with some companies. I sold stuff they gave me for free. I had to admit to that, and it was part of the growing process. I had to talk to, and because I did, I was able to mend that relationship and express, my deep shame. I was ashamed of myself. I still am. I wish I didn't do that. There just was, I hate to say, there wasn't a moment's hesitancy. I would sell anything to get money to fix up. It's just a horrible way to live. That's why you didn't care about junk food or anything you enjoyed before drugs was gone, because every waking moment was about procuring drugs so you weren't going to be sick. And it's just the worst way to live. It's just such an awful, detached, awful, awful, awful way to live. Best and worst parts of living in a tour bus. It's mostly good. It's like a camping out with your buddies, and just seeing the world together. Either what worst parts? I guess I don't know. Dudes fart a lot, and sometimes you're sleeping, and all of a sudden, like it feels like a green fog envelops you. But I sleep with, you know, these Bath and Body Works air fresheners are the straw. I only use these for a Travis Stever special or a Shreddy special or what every guy on the bus farts, myself included. My farts don't stink though. To be perfectly honest, my farts do not stink. But I have these right next to me in my bunk just for the bad ones. Mild fart, 1 through 5, no, nay. I'm an adult. 1 through 7, I can handle without a spray. But you get me at 8 and above, I've got to spray, dog. I hit it up. I'm a good smell kind of guy. Things have to smell good because even though people hate that shit because it's so strong, but I'd rather smell that than the buttholes of my friends. But I guess that's the worst part. Dudes are stinky sometimes. I mean, we're all very used to communal living, so we don't eat each other's food. I really enjoy living on the bus. Sometimes with the kids and the families, it can be a little crowded, but like, what am I going to do? It's like, I'm along for the ride in a lot of ways. What am I going to do? But like, sometimes without the kids and the families, sometimes with just the band, it can be a little crowded. But again, what are you talking about? Oh, you come out, there's nowhere to sit. You fucking lean on the counter and your friends are everywhere. And it's just I enjoy it. Not everybody enjoys it. Believe me, at the end of a tour, I'm excited to get home. We haven't toured in a few months, so I'm excited to see everybody and exist in our weird way that we exist. So I guess those best parts, everything. Worst parts, farts. What an answer. Am I good at this or what? 10 minutes left. I guess we will have to do this again sometime. Give Robert a raise. Yeah, I think we have to make some money to do that. What inspired you to become a drummer? I wanted to hang out with the older kids. My brother had friends over. They were starting a band and they needed a drummer. I never thought about, in fact, quite the opposite. My brother Kwame would always be like, yo, listen to the drums in this song. And I couldn't hear just the drums. I could only hear the whole song, which I like to think is a bit of like a microcosm for how I approach drumming and how I approach music in general. But like, I never wanted to be a drummer. By the way, this is at 10 years old, so I just never really thought about being a drummer. I wanted to be in a band. When I was 5 years old, I made flyers for my band. My father was in a band called The Crows. And so naturally, I called my band The Crows too. And I would hang up flyers up and down my street, Belvedere Street in Kingston, New York. And I knew I wanted to be in a band, but I didn't know that I wanted to be a drummer until they needed a drummer. And I set up a bass drum and a snare drum and a hi-hat. I didn't even know what a hi-hat was. And that's also why I play like this, open-handed, because I never noticed drummers played like this. I never, and I sat down that day and I could play a little bit. Now, I'm not making the claim that I was fucking, John Bonham that day, but I could play a little bit. Just understanding like different limbs moving, and I had rhythm. And my dad poked his head in the door, and here's his, troublemaking, like loudmouth son playing the drums, and he just lit up. Now, it's not like my dad didn't give me any attention. My dad was busy. My man didn't get home till 7 o'clock at night, washed his hands, ate dinner, sat on the couch, and didn't want to deal with me up his ass. And I get it now. He was tired, but he lit up. And I think that was the first time I ever felt like the glow of my father's attention. And he said, you have that thing they can't teach. You have rhythm. And I think I did know on that day. It might be kind of like serendipitous and not reality, but in my memories, I think I thought, oh shit, I'm going to be a professional drummer. That's what I'm going to do. And then I played my first show, I don't know, 5 days later. My dad is like local kind of royalty in Woodstock, and people would knock on us for that. But of course, like if Maggie, if my daughter was in a band, you think I wouldn't be calling people like, dude, my daughter is crushing, you got to have her play? Of course I would. But we were kind of anointed, like some respect from the older heads. But this is all local stuff. Like nobody was plugging us in. Everything that we got, I signed my first record deal like high school age. I was with Universal. I've signed 2 different major label deals with 2 different bands with Universal. When I came into Coheed, I was viewed as the guy with like major label experience. I was from a much bigger band. 3 was significantly bigger than Coheed, but still at a local level. I mean, I viewed what Coheed was doing, or Shabuti was doing, as like superior in a lot of ways. It had an edge to it. Where 3, I kept fighting to give the music an edge, but my brother just wasn't concerned with edge. I think he wanted it to be as pretty, but like it just, I don't know. Sometimes I listen to that stuff and it still makes me feel kind of icky. It's just lacking any balls whatsoever, and that's my brother, and he's allowed to be that. But I wanted to be in a band that had some edge and was like felt dangerous a little bit, and that was Shabuti. I was such a huge fan, but like I knew that I was gonna be a musician on that day. And I don't even remember what the question was. Who was the toughest person to tell about your addiction? Oh, that's easy. Tammy. I'll try to get this out quick. It was hard, man, because, well, for starters, when you're constantly juggling, like you're selling over here to try to make enough just to shoot up enough to be not sick, but of course you did too much, and now you got to charge extra or try to cut it, and it's just it's a nightmare. Every day's a nightmare. You're ripping off your friends are ripping you off, everybody, you tax every bag that you get. It's just this awful way of living. And I owed a guy some money, and he was dangerous. Not the threat of danger, the actual danger. And he had put out, I believe it was $2,500 for every broken limb. And this guy was at my house waiting for me and made sure I knew that. Him and his thugs were at my house. Mind you, me and Tammy lived in the assisted living project condos in Kingston. And I had to tell her. We had to sleep at the studio on the couch that night, and she was devastated. We had only been dating for like a year, and I begged her to not leave me, but she said, this shit changes or I'm out. And I was like, when I met Tam, I sound so corny. I'm sorry, this is the truth. A voice whispered to me, this girl will save your life. That I had one ultra narrow crack in the door to get out of this thing. And the sad part is there was another girl I was kind of like dating on and off that wanted to save me, but I don't know. The universe told me that she wasn't the one and that Tammy would save me. But Tammy was the easiest person to lie to because she was trusting and like so naive to drugs like this that I could just make up whatever and she'd believe it. She was so easy to lie to that I began to feel guilt, something I hadn't felt in a long time, because here's a person who trusts me, and I still did awful things. And I owed it to her to get better. I don't want to get into some of the awful things I did. I mean, it's not, it's like taking money out of a cash box from a single working mom. And you rationalize it. You think it's $100 here, $100 here, until she counts it. And she's like, I'm $3,000 short. And you're sitting there like, I did this. Tell her. Oh God, I can't tell her. And it's just, to this day, I think about that at night sometimes. And it's an actual weight right now on my chest. I'm so sorry to have treated her like that. And then I had to tell her one day, I'm a heroin addict. And by the way, people had been telling her that about me, and she defended me. No, he's not. That was in the past. He's clean. By the way, Tammy also paid for me to live. I didn't make $1 for years. I had messed up my life so royally. I wasn't able to get paid. I owed the IRS so much money. They took 100% of any monies that were to be paid to me, went right to the IRS. So I had nothing. and she paid for me to live. She moved me to Albany. She clothed me and fed me. So I married her ass. She saved my life. What can I say? You know, she's like, you know, like my best friend in a lot of ways. And like, you know, marriage can be tough. Like it's not, you know, marriage isn't always pretty, but we get along. Like we're friends. We bicker sometimes, but like, you know, she's the main catalyst. And, you know, I had a few people that didn't give up for some reason because they should have. I gave everyone every reason to give up, including me. I had given up on me until, I don't know, man, until I didn't. But, okay. Did closing the book on Weird Science for now help open the door for Drum Set Confession? I don't know, man. I just, you know, I'm 43 years old and I'm a happy guy. Weird Science is like a place for dark thoughts. You know, it's hard to listen to that shit. And to be quite honest, sometimes I listen to it and I say, wow, I was pretty good. And then other times I listen to it and I'm like, holy shit, I'm terrible. But I'm too sensitive to be a rapper. I tried to get Vinny Paz from Jedi Mind Tricks on a song and I sent it to him. And me and Vinny are friends, but like 10 minutes later, he tweeted like, yo, what do you do if a friend of yours shows you some shit and it's straight garbage? And boom, confidence destroyed. I'm done. Done with. That's really what happened. I'm like, I'm done with this. But I came from a time when like all these kids were saying they could rhyme, but they could not even be on. They weren't on beat at all. Like back in the day before everybody had a studio in their bedroom, like dudes would swear they were the illest MC and they go to an open mic night and they didn't have any rhythm. They weren't even on the beat. And it takes getting used to rapping into a microphone. So and these were a lot of kids that would like kind of pick on me or fuck with me in high school. So I really enjoyed just like eating them alive. But I don't know that I have a lot to say and I wouldn't like force it for you guys. I think that Weird Science, I believe in the stuff I did. I think our last 3 records kind of like really evolved into something that was kind of like high end for me. Like I listened to that stuff and like, well, some of it can be hard to listen to, some of it, because even at that time, you know, I'm talking about things from outside of it. Maybe not as far as outside as now, but like outside of it. I certainly wasn't an addict making those records, other than Sick Kids. Sick Kids is a whole other story. But I'm really proud of those records. And Weird Science kind of like carved out an audience that I'm blown away every day that like enough people listen to it that like, you know, money comes in and like, that's just, you know, who knows? Maybe one day I'll make the illest record I ever made, but it probably won't be a rap record. It'll probably be like, I don't know. I sent Claudio a song the other day and I said, this is going to be our new band. Joshua, Eric, Eppard, and Claudio Paul Sanchez. That's the name of the band. And he was like, I'm down. I could just show up at Claudio's house and he'd make records with me, but I don't for some reason because he's so like prolific. I'm always not a little. I'm like so intimidated by Claudio because he's just like, that guy probably wrote a record today, a whole record. He just works and works and works. And I look up to that. I'm just not like that. I don't know how to like force it through, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I just don't know the answer, but I'm a therapist for adolescents. Any pieces of wisdom I can share with my teenage clients who abuse substances. Yeah, God, my first advice would be that like the longer you stay kind of trapped in this realm, in this world of drug abuse, the harder it gets to stop. Your body's young, you're a teenager. Now you'll lose everything. You will lose everything. The best you can hope for is that you keep your habit like mildly fucking your life up. That's the best. That's the top of the mountain that you can hope for, really, if with opiates, because you're going to need more and more. And by the time it has you by the balls, you're done. You're done for. You're not going to live unless you're like a gazillionaire. Like then maybe, who knows? If I hit the lottery, I'd be dead. There's no way I would have lived. I stopped doing dope because of the hustle and the bustle. I honestly didn't know that life could be good again. I had enough faith in other people, just a smidge, because I was such a dark person that I said, maybe they're right. I'll give it a try. But it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years. I didn't feel like myself for a long time. Stopping when you're young And they're out there. There's people that did. You can really leave it behind. You want to be one of those people that people can tell you were an addict, even though you're clean for 10 years. You just wear it on you. No, stop when you're young. It leads nowhere. It's not fun. Trust me, the fun ends. You know what's fun? Being passionate about things, having things that you love. That's fun. Having sex. At least if you're a guy, having sex is fun. You want to get rid of that? That should connect with a teenager. You know, God, when I was a teenager, I basically was a walking boner. Shit, when I was 12, you want to hear a real true story? When I was like 11 or 12, me and my brother Kawami, we thought when you went out, like adults wear condoms, we thought you like put the condom on before you go out for the night. And so we're little hood rat kids. We stole a box of condoms. We're like 11 and we like put them on our little fucking hairless wieners, put our pants back on, and then went strolling around the projects looking for ladies. That's what we were doing. We had no idea, but you grew up fast in my neighborhood because we were around older kids. So we knew about all this stuff. I tell my wife these stories. She's like, how did you know what that was at 11? I was like, honey, I knew what that was at 5. I mean, it's not good, but the condom story is pretty funny, man. And that is a true story. We put, like, they didn't even fit. We were 11, man. Like, she had a wet, lubricated condom bouncing around in our undies as we're walking around. What ladies were we looking for? What ladies were we going to find? How dorky, man. And it's fucking disturbing. I mean, I have stories that are so fucking disturbing. Now, through the mind of an adult, I mean, really dark stuff. The condom story is funny. There's shit that's really, really, really dark. You just don't. When you grow up around it, you know, you think it's cool when you go to another 12-year-old kid's house and they haven't seen their parents for 3 days because you can do whatever you want there. I ain't seen my mom in 3 days. And just some of the story, you know, I thought that this person was cool because they seemed so adult as they smoked cigarettes. They're fucking 11, 12 years old, talking about all the times they've been pregnant. And who knows if that's true, but they're clearly, you know, I didn't think with the mind of an adult. I was also a child. So dare I say, I just thought, it was cool their parents weren't there. I lost my virginity to a girl. She was 12, I was 11, or she was 13 and I was 12. This is that girl's house. Her parents weren't home. Her mom was out. I don't know if her mom was out drugging or I'm sure now looking back with the mind of an adult, I'm sure that's what her mom was out doing. She's like, my mom hasn't been home in 2 days, but she called. And that girl said things that haunt me now as an adult. But again, I was a child. And shit is dark, man. She talked about when we get to high school. I remember her verbatim saying, I don't know what high school is going to be like, but I know by the time I get there, I'm been fucked a million times. And to me, I'm like this. I mean, for lack of a better word, sex was like all kids talked about in my neighborhood. I recognize you guys may have grown up very differently, but we were around older kids. So it wasn't as innocent as just nudie mags. It was like, you know, or nudie mags and pornos. Like, I was curious about what sex was. And here's this girl that's like ultra experienced, and I wasn't attracted to her at all, but I didn't know what sex. I didn't know how to have sex. And she asked me to go into the sex room with her, which I was happy to oblige. And again, you know, we're both children. And she tells me I have to use a condom. And like, that's fine. I didn't know that condoms, I thought that I didn't know sex could happen without a condom, I don't think. So I kind of slap a condom on down there, I think. And I'm kind of like, and she looks at me and goes, I can't believe I'm fucking a nerd. That's what she said to me, which I don't mean to laugh because you know, I think about that girl's life. I think about that girl's life and what kind of abuse this kid. But again, I'm younger than her by a year. We're in the same grade. I don't think with the mind of an adult. So please, you know, forgive me. I believe me, I wish I had the foresight to like maybe go tell a parent. But I don't know. She was cool because her parents weren't around. She was cool because she was like experienced and had sex and like she was, you know, but you know, I didn't finish. I could have an orgasm. I couldn't like finish. I was 11. And she goes, "Are you done yet?" And I'm feeling like the embarrassment and like pressure to perform because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like jostling on her. And I was like, "Oh, yeah. That was so good." Or I said something like that I'd heard in a porno that I thought was like an adult thing. But like, I'm telling the story. I'm not sure why I'm telling the story. I think I'm telling it just like as a microcosm of how I grew up. Here's the projects, and she lived right here. And I was spending the night at Kwame's and Roundout Gardens projects, and we went over to her house. There was no, I'm sure my parents would be mortified to know, but my parents were fairly lax. And I was at Kwame's house, and we were allowed to go out at night. We're 80s kids. We're allowed to go out at night, although this was early 90s. But all right, on to the next question. You, Smelly, Dave Ron, and my kit helped me so much. Oh, yeah, 7 years on dope, 6 on methadone, never again. You, Smelly, Dave Ron. Okay, well, great. Yeah, Mike, I wish you nothing but success, however that looks, my friend. I think it sounds like you understand as good as anybody what somebody just texted me. Joshua, stop talking. All right, yeah, I gotta go. Yeah, I'm down to tell these stories though. That shit is real. That's really how I grew up. So if I'm not going to be real about my life, why would I even bother to? What kind of like not? I don't want to exist in some kind of like homogenized. My life's fucked up. I grew up in a really fucked up way, but I think it's worth telling. I want to tell it. So I think that story of me losing my virginity, I ran into that girl as like a 20-something-year-old. We did a skit for the Weird Science record where I kind of, maybe I had to laugh about it. That I can't believe I'm fucking a nerd. And she was like so excited. I think even in my 20s, I didn't think with the mind of an adult. I was in my 20s, and she yelled out at the bar, "Yo, I'm on Josh Eppard's new album." She was like all psyched. We took the skit off the record, but it was really funny. Yeah, I gotta go. Okay, I'm hanging up. This was supposed to be an hour. My wife was like, "No, it's not. We got to start keeping these things as long as we say they're going to be, or I'm not going to be allowed to do them." All right, I'm out. Peace. Later.